Today on Exploring Nevada, we'll once again step back in time as we visit several historic buildings in rural Nevada that played a key role in our state's colorful past. Local groups and volunteers are breathing new life into these historic treasures with the help of the Nevada Commission for Cultural Affairs.
Nevada is very fortunate to have the Commission for Cultural Affairs and the $2 million a year that it distributes annually to rehabilitate historic buildings to be used as cultural centers. It's really an outstanding project. Almost no other state has anything like it, and we've been able to transform over 60 buildings into remarkable assets scattered all over the Nevada map.
We'll head first to Goldfield, located midway between Las Vegas and Reno. There, the massive Goldfield Courthouse stands testament to a time when Goldfield was the liveliest city in the state.
And to tell us about those days is Ben Viljoen, who is the county commissioner and also has a lot of things to say about this building. Now, let's jump right into it. If we were back here in 1907, what would this town be like?
Well, in 1907, they just finished construction on the building. Goldfield was the wealthiest city on the planet at the time. One mine, the Mohawk, was producing $500,000 every 10 days. So a good many of the immigrants living here were worth more money than the gross national product of the country they'd come from. So when they built this courthouse, they wanted, as you probably noticed coming in, it looks like a castle. That was designed on purpose so that people would come into this building and they'd feel the power and the strength and the security of a castle.
The actual stones that made the building are local?
All quarried, and most of the old buildings you see around here were quarried here locally.
What's the point in time at which you want to restore it back to?
The day it opened in 1907. If you walk through the front doors, the sights, the smells will be exactly as they were in 1907. To give you some idea of the wealth of this city, the Auditor Recorder's Office, where the deeds of the most famous mines and wealth of companies were stored, their door is steel. It's a vault door. The outside the building are still used to this day are steel shutters that are closed every night. The walls are 4 foot thick reinforced concrete, and you can see the up the stairs, the columns. As the wealthiest city on earth, they spared no expense. They brought in wood carvers, engravers, stone cutters of every kind to make this the finest building, and of course the most expensive building, way over budget, and took way too long to build. It's still operating as a courthouse, but as you can see on the walls, it's also our county museum. Upstairs in the courtroom, we have lectures and guest speakers and all kinds of civic events that take place between lawsuits and trials.
And so this looks like the courtroom right here.
Yeah, it sure is, and it's used as a courtroom today.
What kind of cases were tried here mainly over the last century?
Well, remember that this was a mining town. The wealthiest, the richest gold ore ever discovered on the face of the earth was here. So you had the most famous lawyers and the most expensive and gory lawsuits and court cases over mining property. Of course, it covered the whole panorama, labor problems and murders, and
the population was 20,000 at one time.
Yes, it was, and that was a very small count because Indians didn't count, immigrants didn't count, in most cases women didn't count, so you might have had about half the population in that. The chairs and everything are original from the jury. We have some real interesting accounts where, remember that this was the very most expensive public building ever built in the state or western United States at the time. It was well over $500,000, which was unheard of amount of money. It was one of the few, or maybe the only one in the state of Nevada, engineered into the plans was electric power, warm and cold water, and restroom facilities. They had a lot of problems. All this was new. The restrooms were on the other side of this wall, so the sewer didn't work very well, so the fumes were were overwhelming. The people sitting here were looking through those windows
Right into the west there.
out into the setting sun at night, and cigar smoke from the lawyers. A lot of people were known to, well, they complained a lot, and some actually passed out from the smell and the heat.
So kind of a tough place to do business in the old days.
It was. They spared no expense for opulence, but it was no place anybody wanted to be. We had to do a lot of construction. There were big cracks in the walls, or in the ceiling, where one of the bearing walls had been torn out in order to enlarge the room, and that was all corrected, and now you can't tell at all. We're going to probably already notice the blinds are falling apart. That's another step. But as time goes on, this room will be restored to its former glory. So
Now these are Tiffany lamps. These are the real thing?
these are original from when the building was built. You can see the glow in the little beads hanging down. There's gold cast in with the glass.
And were they actually sitting that way in 1907?
Right, since
there?
construction. You see all the brass and heavy iron desks and everything. That was the style and the top of opulence of the day. All the railings, everything's original from 1907. Lamps are original. Everything was new and exciting, so you can see it was all wired for electric lights, which was pretty much unheard of in Nevada in 1907, but you'll also see wicks sticking up because they had gas backup, because even though electricity was new and exciting, it didn't work out very well and wasn't very dependable, so they always had gas backup. And all the chairs back here for the audience are original, and if you look at the bottom of the chairs, you'll see that there's a hat rack on each one so that the guys could hang their Studson underneath the chair.
Oh, right over
So,
in here. Okay. Wow,
this
I've
wire's
never seen them like that. Do they all have that then?
Every one of them, yeah.
So would ladies' hats work too?
Women usually weren't allowed in such situations in those days, and women had their place, men had their place, and the courthouse was not a place for women unless she was the one on trial.
So if we could turn the clock back, the people here would be men
Right.
sitting out here.
Right. And in fact, when we go out into the hallway again, I'll show you both upstairs and downstairs only had one restroom. It never crossed their mind to put in women's restrooms. They never were supposed to be in there. What do we need it for? So we've, of course, added them since then.
Well, before we leave this room, in terms of features, like there's a fan there. Now, is that an original fan?
That's original. In fact, with the grant money, the color schemes are all original. The paint is not original, but it's an original color of the time. The bighorn sheep is the mascot of Esmeralda County. That one came, I believe, in about 1968. A poacher was caught, and part of his fine, he lost his rifle. The fine was a couple of $100 or whatever the fine is, and he had to turn over the mount to be used in the courtroom. So that was added since construction, but we're real proud of it.
Here we are in the upstairs hallway. What are the features in this room that are particularly interesting?
Your electric and gas light combinations. You have a skylight. Most of the buildings in town have these huge skylights, which must have been part of the fad of the day. This restroom on the left side is original. If you go through the doorway on the right, you'll see a door in the back, a fire door. That's also a fire escape, but that's also goes straight into the jail where the prisoners are brought up to go into court and then taken back down that way.
Well, a final question for you. What is your next step with this building? What do you want to do that you haven't been able to do?
Well, last year we had the sprinkler systems installed, so I believe our next step is the wiring. And we're so thankful for SHPO and all the agencies that have helped us out.
And in fact, you can see this beautiful old building if you're coming through Goldfield, which is pretty much smack in the middle of the state, halfway between Reno and Las Vegas. This building is open to the public. It's certainly used during the week, but it's also kind of functions as a museum also. There's things on the wall, and it's for the public. So do stop in when you're driving through. It's a pretty interesting town.
We'll head next to Moata Valley in southern Nevada, where Logandale residents are transforming their historic structures into dynamic community spaces.
When your children ask where you got married, will you have to tell them over there by the unleaded? When we lose a historic place, we lose a part of who we are. Help protect historic places in your community. Visit nationaltrust.org.
Gather around. Now everyone, this is an exhibit of an Ice Age mammoth. Now long ago in Nevada, these ancient elephants rummaged through springs and stream beds for food.
Imagine at one time, herds of these huge animals roamed in what might have been your own backyard. You'd be amazed.
The people of Logandale in southern Nevada were really interested in doing something with the proverbial white elephant in their community. The school that they all attended, they're all proud of it. And they came to the Commission for Cultural Affairs with a plan. They have been fantastic about raising funds to match the Commission's grants, and they have produced a really fine institution that serves that community. We're really proud of what they have accomplished, and the fact that we were able to help them out is something that's really very nice.
You know, when I was a kid growing up here in Logandale, this old Logandale school was the very center of my life. I went to school here, went to church here every Sunday. On the 4th of July, we had our races out and back, ran foot races. This was the very center of the entire life of the country of Logandale. My dad was built in 1935 and opened as a new school. And then in 1938, we added the red portion. My dad was the first principal. He was only 22 years old and never taught a day of school in his life. But he came here and opened up the school with a great deal of pride, and the community loved this school. For 8 years, I went to school here in the Logandale Elementary School. First and second grade there, third and fourth grade there, and down at the end of the hall was the fifth and sixth grade. The principal of the school was in the middle classroom because he had to be able to reach out and grab a kid as he was running down the hall when he shouldn't have been. Now, a sign of maturity of students, you knew you really arrived when you could jump and touch the bottom of the light. Then you're one of the big boys. During those 8 years, this was the center of the culture. We braided maypoles, we did musicals, we danced, we sang, and at the end of 8 years, I proudly walk across this stage and graduated with a diploma, the class of 1947. In the late 1960s, all of the students in Logandale moved down to the high school, making a K through 12 school in Overton, Nevada. As a result, this school stood vacant for many, many years until Larry Moses came along with a group of other men and totally restored the building to the beautiful structure it is today.
Back in about 1998, Acel Robinson and Lynn and a number of other leaders in the community came to me and asked if I would take on the task of restoring the building. We began to look for money to do that. The State Historic Commission and the Clark County Commissioners were generous in helping us get the finances for it. A lot of the work in this building was done by volunteers in the community, and we found ourselves a good general contractor and began restoring the old building. If you want an idea of what the building looked like before we restored it and then got it back in shape, you can come into our little dungeon area here and it'll show you what our walls were like before we came and put the sidewall up and cleaned the building up. In this area here was the old furnace that was put in on the second building, of the second part of the building, and you can see we have the area where the pipes were vented up through. We've now, of course, removed that, and we've replaced it with our modern electrical control panel for our air conditioners and that. Of all the things I like about this building, and the things I really love, is the job that we've done on our floors. These are all the original hardwood floors. People come in and look at them and can't believe we didn't replace them, but these floors were sanded. This floor was one of the worst. It had an asbestos tile over it. When we removed the tile, the glue remained. We came in and sanded this 4 times with different grades of sandpaper to get the finish that we have on it now. It's really great to be able to see this old building come back to life and to be used in the community as it is. You know, as a history major, I just cannot stress too much how important it is to me to be able to have my children and my grandchildren to come in and see what buildings were like when their grandfather and father were growing up. The importance of this community, of this building, and the importance of having a tie into the past, I don't think can be overstressed. And through the work of a lot of people, we've made it possible for this community to maintain their old building.
Coming up next, we'll find out how the old Logandale School has once again taken center stage in the community.
No one looks back fondly on the years they spent in a parking garage. When we lose a historic place, we lose a part of who we are. Help protect historic places in your community. Visit nationaltrust.org.
This old building is a wonderful building. It's always been a wonderful building, and I'm so happy that we had the privilege and the funds available to us that we could restore this building. There's the building used daily for dancing. We have dance classes, we have all sorts of meetings, we have weddings, numerous weddings, receptions. We house the Chamber of Commerce here, and we have the historical library here. We have family journals, we have history, a lot of Nevada history books here that we have, old and mostly older books, all the yearbooks from 1919. We have the yearbooks. It's just a wonderful building. When you walk in the building, you get this feeling of like, you know, you just feel so warm and comfortable, and everybody that comes in here, they look down at the floors. They love the floors. They're the original hardwood floors. The people that have gone to school here, which they come back from all over the United States, when they walk in the front door, they say, it's good to be back home. It's good to be back to the old Logandale School. Okay, this here is our museum. This is our museum that we have all of our pioneer antiques housed in here. We have a lot of Native American exhibits in here. We have a wonderful piano, which I don't think many towns would have. It's a Steinway piano, was donated. And our exhibit is wonderful in here. We have, like I say, family histories here of early farmers, agricultural. The farming community here was we were very industrious and agricultural. Okay, this here is our art room in Moata Valley Art Guild. They come in and they have painting classes, and this is some of the beautiful artwork that is their collection. We have art classes. Mr. Bunnell, Max Bunnell, has been a teacher, school teacher, art teacher for over 35 years. He teaches here. We have local artists that are teachers. It's also used for a craft room. We have a lot of scrapbooking classes that go on in here. This room is used for a lot of arts and crafts. We have a lot of very talented people in this valley. This is our conference room. It's used for regular monthly meetings for the irrigation board, the different organizations here. Okay, this here is our dance studio. We have 2 days a week. We have tap and ballet, and as of today, we're going to be having clogging lessons every Friday, once a week. So I just love this room. It's a beautiful room, and the kids love it too.
How often is it used?
It's it'll be 3 times a week. It'll be used 3 times a week. Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, afternoons. And there's a lot of children that take dance lessons. There's a lot of talent in this valley again.
Is it giving people in the valley a chance to do things that they wouldn't have done otherwise?
They've always had tap and ballet, but it's always been done in people's homes. And so now that we have the school here available to them, and the facilities here are so beautiful that they just want to use them, so we go ahead and go ahead and rent the facility out to defray the costs of operations.
How do you feel now that the building is here?
I love it. It's here, and I'm so proud of it. So proud of it.
Our visit to Logandale coincided with an unusual photographic display. The images capture life in several towns that disappeared into the depths long ago when Lake Mead was created in the 1930s. Now the waters are receding due to drought and the voracious thirst of a rapidly growing Las Vegas. Emerging out of the water are the old buildings of St. Thomas. Beezy's mother, who lives a block from the Logandale School, spent her childhood in the town that is now rising out of the waters. You have a photograph there of you and your mother. Can you tell us about that?
Well, my mother's standing by the banister of the front porch of our house, and I'm standing on it. And I was about 1.5 years old, 1921. About 21. Mm-hmm.
And that was before Lake Mead was filled up.
Oh, yes.
So you have a lot of memories of growing up there in St. Thomas. What was the best thing about living there as a child?
I think the closeness of the people. We were all almost like one big family, and we've stayed that way.
And when the Depression came along, did that seem to affect you?
We didn't know the difference. We were all so poor that we didn't know the difference. We had plenty of food because everyone had their gardens and canned fruit and vegetables, and we had our own meat, and we had plenty to eat, and we had clothes to wear, and who needed more? We didn't know the difference.
So it was a happy place for you growing up?
Yes, very happy.
And what did you feel and think when you got news that Lake Mead was going to be formed, that the dam would go in and the waters would rise?
Well, me personally, I had nightmares about it. My picture in my mind was that it was going to come up like a wall of water, and I'd wake up in the night just petrified until I got old enough to understand that it wouldn't come that way.
And so then you all moved, of course. You had to move out. Mm-hmm. And now that the waters, of course, come up and go down, now they're going down again. You went and visited down there. What was it like to visit?
Well, it was fun because I knew right where I was all over town, and we could walk up and down the streets and sidewalks, and I knew right where everyone lived, and the old head gates that we used to jump around, and everything was right in place. It was amazing that it wasn't more covered up with silt.
The waters rise again, if they will, and they probably will. Maybe it'll go underwater again, but who knows? How do you feel about St. Thomas now?
I don't think that St. Thomas is going to stay underwater. It's going to keep reappearing off and on through the years for us to all visit and remember.
I personally feel like it's a great privilege to be able to go down and visit St. Thomas again for the 3rd time that it's resurfaced. And I just think that St. Thomas was such a close-knit community, the people from St. Thomas, that St. Thomas refuses to stay in his watery grave. It keeps reappearing so that the pioneer people and the descendants of the pioneers can go back and relive some of the days and some of the stories that they've told, and I just think it's a great privilege to be able to revisit St. Thomas.
The people of Logandale did a great job with the Logandale School. They got so excited about working with historic resources, they moved on to the Overton Gym, and they're tackling that now too. They're doing great work for Southern Nevada.
After I graduated from Logandale Elementary, I joined all the students within the Moata Valley and came to high school here at Moata Valley High School. This is the old gym. We'll show you inside. Larry, now we're going to move these three over to that side, right?
Yes, and then we're going to have to get at least 3 more because we're short those. Someone removed the windows on the other side, and we have no idea where they put them.
But these are the original windows. We're going to keep them and move them over there.
Yes, and we'll recreate these. We'll use these for the pattern to do the other ones.
Okay,
and
good.
We'll move
good.
them. With the grants that we've been able to receive from the Historic Commission, we are hoping to restore this building to the grandeur of the one we just came from up in the Logandale area. So far, with our grant money, we have replaced the ceiling. There was a fire in 1991 that burned a pretty good hole in the ceiling. We took it out. We completely reshingled. We have used that money also to get all of our engineering studies done. We've come in and shored up the roof, and we are now presently using the second grant to revive the bathrooms and some of the other structures within the building and to replace the electrical. This morning, we poured the cement floor in the bathroom as we began our renovations in that area. Hey, these floors are actually in better shape than the ones we had up at the old Logandale School. We're going to bring them back to where we can play basketball in here again. Yeah, we'll get the gym back in shape again.
Yeah, well, when we finish, I think we ought to do our next job, of course, is electrical. We've got to get the contract. We'll start holding junior proms and other activities like the glory days of Moata Valley High School.
Please join us in preserving and celebrating our state's colorful heritage. Call 775-684-3448 or visit us at nevadaculture.org. Besides administering grants, the Preservation Office maintains state and national registers of historic places and runs the State Historic Marker Program. The Preservation Office is part of the Nevada Department of Cultural Affairs, along with the State Library and Archives, Nevada Arts Council, and Division of Museums and History. Through these agencies, the state of Nevada offers a wealth of cultural programs for residents and visitors alike. We invite you to check out our website or call 775-687-8323 in Carson City. And see you next time on Exploring Nevada.